Hey everybody, it's the Mass Spoofer, the one, the only, original, authentic, your naughty girl from Texas. Rawr. It's time for spooky time with Spoof. Tonight's story is called The Curse of Campsite 13. Caitlin couldn't wait to get to Fort DeSoto State Park for a weekend camping trip with her parents, Tom and Landa, and her older sister Ashley. They had just crossed the Sunshine Skyway Bridge in their packed Toyota Tacoma and were only minutes away from the campground when she spotted a furry gray raccoon near the tree line. But there was something unusual about the beady-eyed animal that caused her to jump back in unease when it unexpectedly sat up on its hind legs and returned her stare with a menacing grin. "Sorry, Ash." Caitlin had accidentally struck her sister's shoulder with her elbow. "What is wrong with you?" Ashley snapped in irritation. "Did you see the raccoon?" Caitlin motioned. "It was weird. You'll see a lot of those masked striped-tailed bandits in the park." Tom laughed. "I recall your mom and I saw quite a few when camping here years ago. This will be a good experience for you girls." Lana glanced back at Caitlin and Ashley. "Your first camping trip." "We're here." Caitlin called attention to a sign marking the camp entrance. "Finally. I didn't think this ride was ever going to end." Ashley straightened from a slouched position as the truck rolled to a stop in front of the park office. "I'll get us checked in." Tom got out, stretched his legs, and aimed for the office. Caitlin stood next to the truck and gazed on a small cove where numerous boats lined a rocky shoreline. Intrigued, she headed toward the cove and sat on a bench shaded by several tall cabbage palms. She'd only been sitting there for several seconds when a palm frond suddenly fell and narrowly missed hitting her. That was close. She looked up in the tree and saw another raccoon, this one staring down at her with a sinister-looking grin, as if responsible for the fallen prod. Curious, she thought. Just then, Lana called out from the truck, "Time to go." Caitlin waved and called back, "I'm coming." Before heading away, she glanced back up in the tree, but the raccoon had darted out of sight. "There is definitely something strange about the animals here," she said, and headed for the truck. Following a winding road that meandered through the woodsy campground, they soon arrived at their assigned campsite. 13? Caitlin grimaced when she read the sign marking their site. "I don't like having campsite 13. Can't we get another?" "Don't be silly." Tom pulled into a small clearing amid cabbage palms and palmettos. "Since when are you so superstitious? Besides, it's the only spot they had left." He parked the truck and got out. "This is a great location, right on the bay." "I agree with Caitlin," Ashley said. "There's a reason Campsite 13 was the only spot left. It's because of the legend. No one ever wants to campsite number 13, especially not on a full moon night." "How did you hear about that legend?" Lana asked as she got out to help Tom remove 4 bikes from the bike rack. At school, Ashley answered. My friend Tony told me about the curse of Campsite 13 when he found out we were coming here. There's a legend? A curse? What did he tell you? Caitlin wanted to know. Well, Ashley's lips stretched into a mischievous smirk. Long ago, on a full moon night, a family was camping right here at Campsite 13 in this very spot. Legend says that 2 brothers went to bed in their tent, but when morning came, it was discovered that one of the boys had vanished. Ashley dramatized the story. They say the surviving boy went mad, claiming that there were raccoons that had ripped through their tent and taken his brother in the middle of the night. Wereraccoons? Caitlin recalled the sinister grin cast by the raccoon she'd seen in the cabbage palm by the cove. Yep, Ashley nodded. And they always target campsite number 13. That's enough, Ashley, Lana called out from the back of the truck. You're scaring your sister with that foolishness. Your mom's right, Tom seconded. Now both of you get here and help us unload this truck. We need to pitch the tents before dark. Caitlin opened her door, but she hesitated to get out when she heard a noise and caught a glimpse of gray fur from an animal scrambling up a nearby tree. She tried not to think of Wereraccoons or the legend, but that was hard to do when the Campsite 13 sign stood in open view as a constant reminder. An hour later, Caitlin sat at a picnic table with her dad, who was cooking hot dogs on a small grill. A Mandarin sunset over the bay ushered in nightfall, and as darkness settled, she grew more and more unsettled at the thought of spending the night at Campsite 13. She didn't want to believe the legend of the Wereraccoons, but something just wasn't right about the raccoons in the park. They seemed downright menacing. Can you take this out to the large trash cans for me? Tom tied up a bag of trash and handed it to Caitlin. She reluctantly took the bag and inched toward the shadow-laden road, aiming for the 2 trash cans that sat on the opposite side of the pavement. Reaching the trash cans, she lifted a lid, but jumped back with a start when a raccoon leaped from the can and landed mere inches from her. She slowly backed away, terrified that the animal might attack, but it just stopped and stared at her with glowing red eyes. You only have a stripe over one eye, Caitlin observed the unusual characteristic of this particular raccoon. You're a half-masked bandit. She then shuddered when the animal responded with a snarl-like grin that showed its unnaturally long, jagged teeth, never expecting what happened next. Lucky number 13. The raccoon spoke in a boy's voice. Struck with all-consuming fear, Caitlin turned and bolted back to the picnic table where her dad was taking the hot dogs off the grill. Dad. She was short of breath. I just saw another raccoon, and it spoke to me. It said lucky number 13. I was afraid that story your sister told might give you nightmares tonight, but I didn't think it would trouble you this much. Tom motioned for her to sit down at the table. Trust me, there are no curses or wereraccoons. Nothing terrible is going to happen tonight just because we're staying at Campsite 13. Both tents are set up. Lana reached for a package of paper plates. We should sleep comfortably. If we survive the night, Caitlin moaned, laying her head on the table. Lana looked at her. Is that story about the Campsite 13 troubling you? It sure is, Tom answered. But I just reassured her that there's nothing to be afraid of. I don't know, Caitlin. It's a full moon tonight, so you better keep an eye open. Ashley spoke in a ghostly voice, or the Wereraccoons just might get ya. She jumped at her sister. Enough, Tom snapped. I don't want to hear any more about Wereraccoons. Caitlin tried to ignore her sister, but she was certain of what she'd seen and heard. That raccoon spoke, and she was terror-stricken by what it said. Lucky number 13. The image of the raccoon's red eyes and sharp, jagged teeth kept reappearing in her mind. She couldn't help wondering if the animal would soon transform into something wicked, if the light of the full moon would soon turn it into a wereraccoon. After dinner, Caitlin climbed into a tent she was sharing with her sister and settled down for the night. Separated from Ashley by a divider, she laid in the darkness and listened to the sounds of the nights. Frogs, cicadas, crickets, and various birds, too scared to sleep. It's getting cold. She called to Ashley, unnerved by a sudden drop in temperature and the onset of howling wind that whipped the tent flaps with such force that she worried the tent might blow over. She then shot upright when she heard a clawing sound. Ashley, do you hear that clawing? Ashley untied the dividers separating their rooms and poked her head through. Quiet down. You're gonna wake Mom and Dad. What is that clawing? Caitlin was too afraid to unzip the tent and look outside. It's probably raccoons, Ashley whispered. Do you want to know why the raccoons only target Site 13? Why it's cursed? Not really. Caitlin wished her sister would stop talking about the curse. Ashley continued anyways. 100 years ago, in this very spot, a witch cursed a boy for stealing from her by turning him into a wereraccoon. Since then, on full moon nights, they say he appears with a group of other wereraccoons. Children he has changed into wereraccoons over the years, targeting kids that are the age he was when he was cursed. Your age. I don't want to hear anymore. Caitlin covered her eyes. He only claims kids that stay at Site 13, right here where he was cursed. And according to the legend, he can be recognized by his half mask. He only has a stripe over one eye. Caitlin gasped, and her eyes grew wide. I've seen that raccoon. It spoke to me in a boy's voice. It said, lucky number 13. Sure it did. Ashley rolled her eyes. I really saw him, Ashley. I really did. Well, if that's true, then you better beware, because all it takes is one scratch from a wereraccoon's claw to turn you into one of them. So don't let them get too close. Ashley withdrew into her room. Sweet dreams, little sis. She shut and retied the divider. Caitlin, livid with her sister for intentionally scaring her, was now more afraid than ever. Lying awake, she kept thinking about the half-mast raccoon, fairly certain that he was the same Wereraccoon from the legend, the boy who'd been cursed by a witch 100 years earlier. It has to be him, she spoke under her breath. How many talking, half-mast raccoons could there possibly be? Plagued by fear, she fought to stay awake, but soon exhaustion caught up with her and she drifted off to sleep. She wasn't sure how long she'd been sleeping when she suddenly jolted awake, shaken by the sound of an animal chattering nearby. I'm never going camping again. She reached for her cell phone and checked the time. Precisely 1 a.m. Go away, raccoons. She pulled her blanket up under her chin, shuddering when the chattering sounds appeared to grow closer and closer. At that moment, a shadow appeared along the tent wall in front of her, the silhouette of a raccoon. Then, a second shadow appeared, followed by a third shadow and a fourth, until there was at least a dozen. Wereraccoons, she uttered in a trembling voice. With eyes wide with fright, she watched the silhouettes grow taller and taller as they shape-shifted into a hunchbacked creature the height of a person. Shivering at the sight of what appeared to be outlines of long fangs and claws, she feared that the monsters might rip through the tent fabric and snatch her away at any moment. Then she heard something that made her blood run bitter cold. Lucky number 13, a boy's voice whispered. Caitlin instantly recognized the voice of the half-mast bandit and knew what he was after. He was after her. Seized in a petrified state, her pulse sped faster and faster when the Wereraccoons all appeared to simultaneously turn and look into her direction. They inched closer and closer and closer until a horrific scream rang out. Caitlin? Ashley untied the divider and peeked into her sister's room. Caitlin! She cried out in horror, but it was too late. Much too late. The police arrived and initiated a search for Caitlin, finding the tent shredded, suspecting an animal attack. But Ashley knew what happened, rambling on about Wereraccoons and the curse of Campsite 13, desperately trying to make her parents and the authorities believe her. You don't understand. She's still here. She's been turned into one of them, Ashley told him. He only targets Campsite 13. He changes kids that are the age he was when he was cursed. You must believe me. I saw the Wereraccoons. I saw him, the cursed one, the half-mast bandit. He is real. The curse of Campsite 13 is real. It's all real. After that night, Ashley was never the same again, and sadly, Caitlin was never found. But Campsite 13 is still there, and someday, on a full moon night, the half-mast bandit will strike again, and it is the curse of Campsite 13. I hope you enjoyed our story. And next time you go camping, watch out for those Wereraccoons. You never know when they're gonna come and transform you into one of them. Moo ha 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 ha. Rawr.